Well, welcome back to The Key Point here on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Our guests trickling in, a number of them will be joining us as we go on the show. But we have in studio this morning Dr. Rashid Draman. He is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. He's run training for a number of parliaments on the continent and, in fact, beyond. Dr. Rashid Draman, it's good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Alfred.
Great. Also with us is lawyer Martin Pebu. He is a consistent, loyal, present personality on this program all throughout the year 2023. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's more like a job now to contribute to the development of this country in many ways.
Yeah.
Martin Pebu is a private legal practitioner. He is the convener of the Kumipreko Reloaded demonstration and leader of one of three individual bondholder groups. Well, Martin Pebu, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Kanse. I understand now we are the most watched program, the key points. So at least it tells you that we are making progress.
Indeed.
Yeah.
For God and country. And
so this is the right place to be.
Indeed. And we thank you. Thank you so much for the support over the period. And certainly 2024 is going to be good. Also, Neil Ante van der Poy is the Member of Parliament for the Ododo constituency. He is joining us in a bit. Now, he is not going to contest in 2024. Let me just tell you, it was a voluntary decision he took after being in Parliament for quite a while. It's not like he lost the primaries or anything. He has a very interesting ambition after Parliament, which I find quite questionable. But he will join us. Neil Ante van der Poy will join us in a bit. Also, Richard Ahiagba is Director of Communications of the MPP. He's also going to be joining us in a bit. But gentlemen, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Okay. Bobby Bansing is private legal practitioner. He's also going is on Zoom with us. Lawyer Bobby Bansing, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Alfred. And good morning, seniors.
Yeah. Morning, Bobby. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and many happy returns.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us. As we go on, Cletus Avoka, who is one of the most experienced MPs in this country, having served in about 6 out of the 8 parliaments that we have in this country. 6 out of the 8 is going to be joining us to also share his thoughts on this conversation. But just to set the tone, a number of NPP MPs voluntarily, and you can say same for the NDC as well, but so we'll get to both sides. But these are the NPP MPs. We'll show them on the screen right now, who have voluntarily decided to not to contest the 2024 elections in their various constituencies. And the likes of Oseche Mensah Bonsu's name has come up. In fact, he's the majority leader of this 8th parliament. He tops the number of NPP MPs who have decided not to contest. The conversation about the experience and all the impact that they've had going to be lost is what has led to we having this conversation this morning. But Dr. Rashid Draman, I started with you on this because, you see, first, let's understand the apparent impact that this would have, the exit of these experienced members of parliament would have on the work of the legislature. Let's start off with that, first off.
Well, I mean, thank you very much, Alfred. I think we start with the whole idea.
Okay, so that's what you have there. Let's just put it up. Oseche Mensah Bonsu, MP for the Suame constituency, majority leader, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, entered Parliament in 1997. Well, in recent time, he's been tipped as a possible running mate. But he's also watered down whatever would come out if he's not chosen. Samuel Tachia is in there as well. I mean, a Boaka South Member of Parliament, former Minister for Works and Housing, entered Parliament in 2009, chair of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. You also have the Roads and Highways Minister, Kwesi Amakwata, as well, MP at Tiwa West. He's not contesting, entered Parliament in 2010. And then you have Francis Menu Adabo, entered Parliament 2013. He's the chair of the Lands and Forestry Committee of Parliament. You also have the Member of Parliament for Forichrome constituency, entered Parliament since 2017. In fact, he's a chair of another committee as well. We have about 8 of the chairs of the committees in this Parliament decided not to contest. You have Carlos Ahinkra, the chair of the Trade and Industry Committee of Parliament in this 8th Parliament, entered Parliament since 2017. He's also not contesting voluntarily. You remember Carlos Ahinkra for all the deeds of the dawn of January 6th into January 7th, but he is not contesting. You have Francesca Oting Menu, Member of Parliament for Kwabre East constituency. She's the chair of the Gender and Children's Committee of Parliament. Joe Seusu, very experienced parliamentarian, MP for Bekwai, Deputy Speaker of Parliament. This is the first Deputy Speaker of this 8th Parliament, former CEO of DVLA, entered Parliament in 2009. He came in as an independent candidate, is it not? After all the back and forth in that constituency. And a number of them. Then you have Kennedy Ohinie Japan. Kennedy Japan, Asin Central, well, he got into Parliament as Asin North Member of Parliament in 2000, and when that constituency was eventually demarcated and had Asin Central carved out of Asin North, he won that seat again. And he's a chair of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. He contested, placed second in the NPP presidential primaries. He says, well, you know what, I'm done with Parliament. Dan Kwekuboche, MP for Kre, entered Parliament in 2009. Very experienced politician, parliamentarian, Minister for Local Government, Rural Development and Decentralization, amongst many. So these people, you cannot take away the experience and the impact. Let me welcome Neil Antivandapoy now. Neil Antivandapoy, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Great. So we'll get into his bit as well, because as you can say same for a number of the NDC MPs, experienced MPs. He's one of them who's also not going to contest voluntarily in 2024. Dr. Rashid Draman, this picture as painted, what impact are we talking about in terms of how this would impact on the work of Parliament going forward?
Well, Alfred, thank you very much. You know, we live in a country where our 2 major political parties do not have any organized mechanism, if I could put it that way, to prepare people to go to Parliament. Maybe let me just give a little bit of an example here. If you remember, a few years ago in Norway, a gunman went into a summer camp and killed many young people who were being prepared by their political party for future leadership in the Parliament of Norway. And that is why today in Norway, that parliament is the youngest parliament in the world, because you have a lot of young people going in there to replace those who have been there already. But these are people who have been prepared for that job.
And their political parties have that structure to prepare
The political
them.
parties have those structures. In our country, we don't have that. So when you have the likes of Honorable Osechi Mensah-Bonsu and all the others that you have shown, who have honed their skills over the years in the House, leaving the House, then I think on the face of it, one could say there's going to be a very huge void in terms of the workings of Parliament. Honorable Vanderpoy is here. I think when you take the internal workings of Parliament, and you look at, for instance, the lawmaking process, a lot of the work is done at the committee level. And at that level, I think usually there are very few MPs who take a lot of interest in going through the intricacies line by line, scrutinizing every clause and so on. And I can tell you, at least based on my interaction with some of these experienced MPs who are exiting, I think most of them are those that take a lot of interest in this. So when you look at that, I mean, their exit from that point of view, then it becomes very worrying. I know there are those who would say, you know, we have to go to the issue of term limits. I mean, just as we have term limits for the presidency, in most countries this issue has come out. I mean, why don't we have term limits for members of parliament? I mean, why should somebody go to parliament and be there forever? And I think some of them have been given some notorious names like Mugabe's and so on and so forth. To the extent that election after election, we see, you know, people trying to get rid of them. And that has put a lot of pressure on the political parties, to the extent that I think they rather than perhaps try to see how to balance inclusion and experience, I think the focus, in my opinion, has been mostly on, you know, inclusion, particularly inclusion from the point of view of, you know, those who have fat wallets. I mean, let me put it this way. Those who have fat wallets.
Who have plenty money.
Who have plenty money, because our politics has been so monetized. Of course, not ours alone. I think globally, I mean, has been so monetized to the extent that parties would give premium to those who have money than those who have experience and those who are going to stay in the house to make a significant contribution. So if you look at the group, I mean, the list that you have here, and then we put the NDC list as well, I will put them in 3 different categories. I mean, those that were pushed, those that jumped, and those that just got tired of, you know, the fact that this is a system that we cannot change. I mean, I've had occasion to speak to a number of these people who are exiting. There are some who have had to just say, look, it looks like I'm going to lose because somebody with big money is coming to take my seat. And the chiefs are all, I mean, and the party is embracing this person.
I see.
There are some who would just say to you that, look, this system is so broken that we cannot fix it, and we are better off just taking our exit. And there are some, you know, who were pushed. You know, there are some who were pushed. So if you look at all these, you put it together, then you have a situation where, you know, we are going to wake up in the 9th Parliament with a situation where you add the usual attrition rate that we have. Normally, it hovers around 44-50% in our country. You add, I mean, these number of people who are not coming back, then we are likely to have a scenario where maybe we'll have about 60% of our parliament new, I mean, come January 2025.
60%. You put it at 60% of new MPs, entirely new MPs, getting into that 9th Parliament.
Indeed. And if we have that situation, and you look at the trends over the years, people get into Parliament, and you are hoping that they will make a career as legislators, as members of Parliament. But rather, what we see, a huge majority of members of Parliament, when they get in there, the interest is not very much the work of Parliament, but rather, I have described it at one point as a big waiting room for executive appointment. Most people go in there, Alfred, today, if that constitutional provision is removed, where we say you go to parliament, you stay there, you make a career in parliament, I can tell you the mad rush that we see about going to parliament is going to disappear. So the point I'm making is, if you add that to the fact that we are going to lose some of these experienced people, then I think it becomes quite disturbing that the ninth parliament is going to be, one that will be denied the experience, the skills, and so on that these members who are exiting have, been able to hone over the years. But let me quickly add, Alfred, I think, our parliament, and indeed most parliaments around the world, are not popular institutions.
What do you mean?
Afrobarometer has done its studies, and not only here in Ghana, across, the continent, and in many other places. Parliaments are one of the institutions that citizens do not trust. In fact, there is even one study which shows that, people trust the presidency more than parliament. And people trust the ruling parties more than opposition parties. So when you put this together, then there are those who would say, well, these people who are leaving, it looks like they really haven't been able to, get the institution to perform creditably, despite the experience, despite the knowledge, despite all the skills that they have honed over the years. Because if you put, for instance, the 8th Parliament under the microscope, despite all the experience that we are talking about, there are very few things that we can say positively about the 8th Parliament. When it comes to the most important, which is the issue of oversight, I think we haven't seen very much.
And it's not this hung parliament?
Indeed. The opposition has done the best that it can. But you see, oversight and holding the government to account is a duty of all members of parliament, or not only one-sided kind of affair. And if you look at most decisions that are made in our parliament, they are by just simple majority. At one point, I have said that, look, we need to go back to the Constitution and try to see how some of these critical issues can be made, to be issues that will be decided by a 2/3 majority. Then we don't have a simplistic way of looking at these things, because you have a situation where, for instance, the budget, you have a situation where huge, loans are contracted by our country. And it's just simple majority that decides whether this should go ahead or not. And so if you take that and put it beside, the issue of the hung parliament and the hope that all of us had, that, look, we have a hung parliament now and the NDC is going to be able to hold the government to account and so on and so forth. That has not really and fully materialized, because at every moment, in critical matters, you see issues getting divided quickly along party lines. So if you put all these together, then people will say, yes, we are talking about experience, we are talking about, all these people who have been in parliament for close to 30 years and they are leaving, we should be worried and so on. Then people would say, what has been really their impact in the House? Let me say that, Alfred, in the workings of Parliament, certainly, clearly, we can't take away the issue of experience. It's very important, and that's why we've had members of Parliament in some jurisdictions who have been in Parliament. In fact, the longest-serving member of Parliament ever in the world is John Dingell from the U.S. state of Michigan. He stayed in Parliament for almost 60 years. And he left Parliament, the U.S. Congress, when he was 60, when he was 88 years old. And when you look at the record of these people, there is a lot to show in terms of what they've been able to do, to country, what they've been able to do to their ridings, and so on and so forth. And that is the argument that we are finding it very difficult to make, I mean, when it comes to the space in which
But
we
at
live.
least we do know that the MP's position is an elected one. So somehow, even if the MP doesn't bow out voluntarily, he or she is going to lose an election one day. So if they stay from the case of the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, for instance, apart from him, Osechi Mensah Bonsu, I think is the next,
the next
longest serving MP. We know that one day they will go out of Parliament because they're not going to be there forever. Unlike this Michigan representative who was there for 60 years. In our case, we know they will go one day. So why don't we then now begin to think about putting certain mechanisms or structures in place to have some retention of their experience and knowledge to still benefit Parliament after the exit? Because as for the exit, it's going to come. So, and then when it happens, we still be having this conversation of, oh, experienced MPs are leaving Parliament and it's going to have an impact on the work of Parliament and so on and so forth. This is not the first time we're talking about this, but every time it's like we're back to square one when this matter comes up.
Yes, indeed, Alfred, and that is what we don't do very well as a country. You know, a few years ago, we started something we call the legacy reports. And these legacy reports were reports that were prepared by committees of Parliament in order to pass on to the next legislature. What has not been done is, a practice where experienced members of Parliament like this, like Honorable Chairman Sabonsu and all those that are leaving, are made either by their political parties or by Parliament to perhaps maybe prepare. I know they, as leaders and so on, they prepare their handing over notes. But I don't think that there is any legacy document that they prepare, to hand over and to be, if you like, a kind of guide, a guidebook on how to become a good member of Parliament to those who are coming in. So they stay in the House. After many years, they leave and they leave with their experience. And as I said earlier, the political parties also do not have a clearly organized structure to prepare people to go to Parliament.
Right.
I mean, they are very busy trying to win election. And I think that is, their major concern. I haven't seen a situation where there is a clearly defined mechanism. I mean, like they give the example of the situation in Norway, where, parties prepare their people to go to Parliament. And that is why, for instance, in Norway, you have one of the youngest parliament in the world. I mean, it's the Norwegian parliament.
Okay.
And I think if we look at the record in the Scandinavia, I mean, when it comes to issues of corruption, when it comes to issues of well-being and so on, I think they are on top there. So, yes, they have a lot of young people, perhaps, who have just entered Parliament. Yet, I think the performance is there for everyone to see. So it goes back to perhaps maybe looking at the fact that someday some of these people are going to leave. I mean, what should we do as a country? What should we do as a political party? What should we do as Parliament? To make sure that once they leave, the void, doesn't affect the workings of the legislature.
Good point there. And let me welcome at this point Mr. Richard Jangba, who is the Director of Communications of the new Patriotic Party, the National Director of Communications. Mr. Jangba, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Alfred.
Great. Now, when we're talking about the experience, it also has to be balanced up with the impact. I mean, somebody can be in Parliament for, so long, but obviously still, not have so much of an impact.
Yes.
So, I mean, you look at Parliament itself, and Dr. Rashid Draman made reference to that briefly about the oversight role of Parliament. So if you are there for so long, but yet it's still, we have challenges with the quality of oversight that Parliament is providing. That's what also another concern is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, let me start with a comment that the speaker made recently. He was referring to one of the surveys, right, which put Parliament roundly at the bottom Among the three arms of government, yes. Even the presidency did better. I'm sure when I talk about corruption in the presidency, you will start. But it's the truth. Let's accept it. Thank God we have just less than how many months to go. Your people will be out, and then we can breathe some fresh air. Anyway, so when you look at the surveys, Parliament is at the bottom. Even in actual fact, I was trying to get some newspaper headlines, Daily Graphic, etc., where you even see the former minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, also admitting to it that look, Parliament hasn't lived up to their billing. Speaker Babin. So the internet is awash with various news items. And let's look at even the Afro Barometer 2022. I'm interested in a few of the comments. It says that survey findings show strong public support for the central role of MPs in making laws and holding the president accountable. But few citizens think MPs listen to what their constituents say, and most give their elected representatives a negative performance review.
Negative performance?
Yeah, most give a negative performance review. So that's last year's Afro Barometer survey. Yes, and that is it. It's a reflection of what we are living in. If Parliament had done so well, it would have been obvious for us to see. You would have seen that we would have had better laws, and then we would have better standards of living, and the world would have ranked us much better, right? Yes, so to the extent that times are very bad, terribly bad, people are hungry, we can't find food to eat, we can't pay rent, we can't pay electricity bills, etc., a lot of the blame goes to Parliament because, as Dr. Rashid Draman referred to, Article 103 is very clear. Parliament should have oversight. Let's read one of the provisions under 103. So 103 clause 3 says, committees of Parliament shall be charged with such functions, including, so that's not the whole, but including the investigation and inquiry into the activities and administrations of ministries and departments as Parliament may determine. And such investigation and inquiries may extend to proposals for legislation. So you look at it, oversight, you go to the power to make law, pass the financial bills, etc., all those provisions, and yet we have this situation where there's so much bad governance, okay? We are not fighting corruption well. Then you see that Parliament must squarely be blamed for it. Because who passes the budget? Who passes the budget for government to spend? So let's say that after the first year, when we, by the end of the first year, we'd seen that the symptoms of mother serpent of corruption, clearing agent were very, very alive and looming large in President Kufuor's budget. In 2018, did anybody put the gun to the parliamentarians' head to pass the budget? You had to find ways of what? Holding the president to account. You could have said, look, we are not going to pass this budget unless X, Y, Z are done. Like what they tried to do this year, but eventually it fizzled out. You remember at a point, they said they would not take any, they will not consider government business if Oforiatta doesn't go. It turned out to be what? A 9-day wonder. The president swindled them. He said, oh, wait, let him take us to the IMF. You think he
swindled them?
Oh, he swindled them. Yes, because after we went to the IMF, after the program was approved, has the president sacked Oforiatta? And what have the parliamentarians done? You know, Eugene Boachienchi came out a few times to make noise. Apia Kubi, God bless them for their initiative anyway. They did well, but except that they couldn't stay the course. Honorable Patrick Boama, these three guys, yes, that was laudable, but they couldn't stay the course. So the thing is that Parliament hasn't lived up to the billing. I'm not the one saying it. The citizens have said it. The Afro Barometer speaks for itself. And this is what? A survey that ordinary citizens are asked. They can feel it. As long as we have so many millions of people, at least 10% of our people are hungry, they can't find food to eat, they can't pay electricity, etc. Please, Parliament hasn't done a good job because there's more than enough money to make all of us comfortable. But we've sat down and we've allowed these appointees to steal and stash the money abroad. Like Kennedy Japan keeps warning us that appointees are stealing money. They are stealing money. They are stealing money. They are stealing money. They are stealing money. And they are stashing it abroad. And we are seated. Parliamentarians won't do much. Look, 50, you remember this case we've been mentioning here, 52.5 billion
that
got lost.
Money.
2020, since 2020, that December, that the Auditor General, Ekwiyamwa Esiedu, brought a letter that, oh, he's working on it. 3 years on, he can't find the money.
So in this instance, Parliament can step into this matter.
Absolutely.
And not leaving it to Mr. Michael Aflu to be rather
excellent
going on and on about it.
And you keep approving the budget. You see what they did last week? You know, when they went into the budget debate, at a point, the minority appeared to outnumber the majority. So then they saw that, if they went on, they would lose the vote. So then the one in the chair, the one acting as speaker, suspended the sitting.
In fact, there was actually one of the periods that the minorities was more than the majority.
Yeah, that's why. Did I turn it? I mean, the minority. Honorable
yes,
you guys were
it happened that the voice vote, they won.
So then they suspended.
They suspended.
Went out, and then they said 30 minutes or something. Then minority were in the cafeteria. That's what I followed on a certain radio station. They were in the cafeteria, and then they were called back. For me, I didn't believe what Honorable you guys did. That cafeteria thing, I think it was a planting. They appeared to be in the cafeteria, and then the majority went in and then passed the budget. It was orchestrated. You know, this is not the first time. That's what they always do. They'll take money and then pretend to be fighting. Honorable Speaker even has said it. No. From the past experience, we can say the Speaker himself said it. He said that, look, parliamentarians take money to do the bidding of business interests and the executive. That's what was at play. How can you have an upper hand and then in about 30 minutes, you say you're going? So the sitting was suspended. Where did you go? That suddenly the majority had an upper hand. It's that thing, the shenanigans. They will come and pretend to be fighting. Hey. No. It's a charade. Look, but the parliamentarians should know that we are not kids, so their day is coming. Don't forget, that's what Burkina Faso they did, and then you see the citizens went and bent down the parliament. Yeah, a few years ago. That's what happened, because when you keep deceiving us that, oh, you are fighting, but you are pulling punches, Yeah, you are pulling punches. You are not hitting hard enough. You think we are not seeing through. We are seeing through. We will soon get to that critical mass of citizens seeing through. Then that will be the end. Like the way we say in Tree, this thing that you have the numbers, and then in the next 30 minutes, suddenly your majority is disappeared, and then the government is able to pass its budget. But stop. It just looks like a child's play. Like we're just being swindled. That's thrown into our eyes. How can you take citizens for granted like that? We vote for you to go and champion our cause. All the provisions are there. Hold government to account. No. It's all about money. Yeah, you read Professor Achuayi's writings, okay, those are some of them Dr. Draman referred to. It's all about catching the president's eye. That's when it comes to the majority in parliament, because they want ministerial appointment. They want juicy board appointments. And that's how come, we've repeated it ad nauseum, that as for 2024, after talking about the economy, the next will be about the constitution. We need a constitutional review. So Article 78, the one clause 1, the one that talks about appointing majority of ministers from parliament, must go. It's going to be one of the casualties. Yes, let's read it briefly. It says, ministers of state shall be appointed by the president with the prior approval of parliament from among members of parliament or persons qualified to be elected as members of parliament, except that the majority of ministers of state shall be appointed from among members of parliament. This majority coming from parliament is not working well. We didn't read our history well. They will tell you that in 79, it's because, we had a strict separation, so Liman's budget got thrown out and all that. But it's not true, because when you read a bit more into the history, to show that they chose not to attend Why didn't they attend? So look at it that way. So for us who have just said, 1979, when we tried that strict separation, the man's budget got thrown out. Yes, if you throw out a president's budget, that's good. He will set up. You see how in America, they usually have to negotiate. You see Biden's budget. Yeah, they had to negotiate and negotiate, right, before eventually it got through. Yeah, so you just don't bring, especially if you get an autocratic leader, if you get a dictator like President Kufuor, then you see that
you describe him as that. As
dictator.
Anyway, in a democracy.
We are living in a dictatorship. This constitution is just
in a democracy.
No. The constitution, it's so weak. So Kufuor is just dictating. He's a complete dictator.
But we are in a constitutional rule.
Oh, no. Don't forget, look, they will tell you when you go to constitutional law lectures, they will tell you one of the first lessons they will tell you is that the fact that you have a constitution doesn't mean there's constitutionalism.
I see.
And when we talk about constitutionalism, key among them, we are looking at the checks and balances. This, what do you call it? A president who has championed corruption, and yet year in, year out, his budget is being passed willy-nilly. How? Somebody who came on the back of fighting corruption, yet his best performance so far is what? 43. And the 43 is the lowest mark that his predecessor got. And I don't support John Mahama any day. I don't. I'm for a third force, right? A third force, because these two parties have, sunk us too low. But we have to face the fact that John Mahama's worst performance on the ranking, 43, is Kufuor's best. For the past 3 years, we've stagnated at 43. Ranking 122 on the corruption index. How?
Okay.
When they say pass laws to fight corruption, no, he's not interested. He would run away because he knows what? As soon as the laws are passed, he may be the first culprit. You remember our famous code of conduct for public officers, where we are asking that the provision should include publication of assets as used to be done.
In fact, that's going to be one of our issues that we will talk about.
And because the conduct
fled
from it.
Public officers bill,
yes. Until the IMF reinstated it.
It's part of the IMF's conditionalities. So